All right, let's get into it. Today, we're tearing apart a story that gets right to the core of our digital lives. It's about the promise of finding a community online and the absolute chaos that follows when that promise just completely shatters. We're going to look at the anatomy of a total online meltdown.
So let's meet the main character in all of this, a guy named Alberto. And this quote, it tells you everything you need to know. He wasn't on Twitter looking for fights or drama. He was searching for something way more basic, something a lot of us want really, just a little peace and quiet.
And this is the thing, right? Alberto wasn't just hoping for a safe space, he was actively trying to build one. But what this story shows us is that even the strongest digital walls can come crumbling down, not from the outside, but from within. So let's rewind a bit and see how we got here.
Okay, so first up, a search for sanctuary. We need to understand why this place was so important to Alberto. This wasn't just some casual chat room for him, it was a lifeline during a really tough personal journey.
I mean, he was incredibly open about it. He literally said he was psychologically completely not okay and was trying to recover. He'd made it clear in his posts that he was struggling and needed a place that was a refuge, not another battlefield. The community he was building was supposed to be that shield.
Now, every online group has its challenges, but this one had a chronic problem, a constant source of stress that was just slowly, day by day, wearing everyone down and making the whole structure unstable. Which brings us to the persistent agitator.
And that brings us to a user known only as T. Now, according to the other members, T wasn't just annoying, he was a constant disruption, interrupting people, making these bizarre noises, and no matter how many times people asked him to stop, he just wouldn't.
You can just feel the exhaustion in Alberto's words here, can't you? Imagine trying to find a quiet corner of the internet to heal your mind, and this is what you're dealing with. For Alberto, T wasn't just an annoyance, he was a direct threat to the entire reason the space existed.
And look, this wasn't just Alberto's problem, not by a long shot. Other people in the core group, like this guy Bill, were just as fed up. Took's behavior was a shared nightmare, and it was getting on everyone's last nerve.
And this is where you get into that classic problem every online community faces. What do you do with a guy like T? Was he just clueless? Someone who didn't get social cues? Or was he doing it on purpose, being malicious? That uncertainty just paralyzes people. Nobody wants to be the bad guy and ban someone who might just be awkward, but at the same time, his behavior was poisoning the well. So, nothing happened.
So it all comes down to this, right? In a place that's supposed to be safe, when one person is making it feel unsafe for everybody else, whose job is it to do something? And that very question, that inaction, is what set the stage for the explosion that was about to blow the whole thing apart. So you've got this simmering tension, right? This constant annoyance from T has worn down everyone's defenses. But all of that, it was about to look like nothing. A completely different kind of attack was coming, and nobody saw it.
You could just feel it. The whole space was on a knife's edge. Alberto was at his breaking point. And in these kinds of moments, all it takes is one tiny spark to set the whole forest on fire.
And there it is, this spark. A user named Helen pops into the space and levels this question directly at Alberto. Have you assigned me a handler? An accusation of being spied on, of being managed. It came out of absolutely nowhere, and in an instant, it changed everything.
And boom, the whole thing just exploded. It was instant, it was messy. Alberto, who had put his heart into this space, felt totally betrayed. You can hear the hurt in his response, basically telling her, if you're that paranoid about me, then just stay away. Other people were just stunned, speechless. In a place built on trust, an accusation like that is a nuclear bomb. It attacks the group's entire reason for being.
I mean, really think about that for a second. One question. That's all it took. One single moment of paranoia to completely demolish a community that was supposed to be all about trust and support. It just goes to show you how fragile these spaces really are. All right, so let's get into the final part of this story, the conflict and the brutal aftermath. What happens when the smoke clears? This is where Bill, the other member we heard from, just couldn't hold back anymore. He calls Helen out, and his words are just devastating. He points out the terrible irony. She, someone who claimed to work in mental health, had just walked in and caused a massive mental health crisis in a space designed to prevent exactly that. But for Alberto, man, this was so much more personal. He had built this place, defended it, for people like himself.
To have that trust thrown back in his face, to be accused of something so sinister by someone he thought was a friend, that was it. That was the final blow.
So what was the final tally here? Well, the damage was just total. For Alberto, his trust was completely shattered. He basically decided he was done with toxic people, period. For Helen, she was branded a hypocrite who destroyed the very community she claimed to be a part of. And for the safe space itself, the illusion was gone. It turned out to be just as vulnerable to paranoia and accusation as any other corner of the internet.
And that really leaves us with this big, messy question, doesn't it? In these digital worlds we all live in, is a true safe space actually possible? Or is it just a nice idea, an impossible ideal that's always going to crumble under the weight of our own human messiness? It's definitely something to think about.